Hey, what's up guys? Nate Taylor here with FulltimeFilmmaker.com, and yes, believe it or not, that entire commercial was shot 100% on the new iPhone 12 Pro Max. With every new release of Apple's iPhones, they're inching closer and closer to replacing smaller DSLRs in real-world commercial work. And as we always say, it's not the gear you have, but how you use it. While we believe this holds true even if your gear is a smartphone, we do recognize the limitations that iPhones, and all other smartphones for that matter, have when it comes to filmmaking. Specifically their inability to handle low light. In recent years, there have been a lot of amazing videos shot purely on iPhone, and they look incredible. Not just incredible for being shot on iPhone incredible, but really, really good. But the majority of those videos took place in bright, well-lit scenarios. So with the announcement of the iPhone 12 Max Pro and its new low light capabilities, we wanted to put it to the test and see just how well it can handle cinematic, low light scenes, which will hopefully get us closer to answering the age-old question, can you shoot commercial work on a smartphone? Before we dive into the making of this video and show you how we did it, I want to thank Epidemic for sponsoring today's video. We are frequently asked questions like, where do we get our music from? How do we get music so that we can license and monetize our videos? And one that is coming up more and more is, can my clients run paid ads with my licensed music? The answer, Epidemic Sound. I use Epidemic Sound for pretty much all of my client work. With their commercial plan, I'm able to whitelist all of my clients' videos, meaning that they can have a license for unlimited ad spend, and I'm free to post on all my personal social media channels as well. Aside from that, I love using their curated staff picks playlist to find songs for my videos. It's usually loaded with really good tracks, and it makes finding the perfect song that much easier.
I will include a link in the description to get 1 month free off the commercial plan.
But let's go ahead and dive into the video, and I'll show you how we created that commercial just using the iPhone 12 Pro Max. First off, to shoot this video, I just used the native iPhone camera app. I've used apps such as Filmmaking Pro, but I've heard great iPhone filmmakers say that they prefer the native app, so I went that route for this commercial. The simplicity of the software is fast and intuitive, and to have the ability to lock focus and my exposure just by holding my finger down is super beneficial. This was a must on this shoot because the iPhone tried to expose for the shadows and the highlights, leaving my subject overexposed and my shadows noisy. So by forcing the iPhone to underexpose the image as a whole, my subject was perfectly exposed and left me with the black backdrop you see in the video. Just make sure if you're doing a shot like this one that your backdrop is at least 5 feet away from your subject so that your key light doesn't reflect against it. For my key light on this shoot, I used the Aperture 300D Mark II with a light dome and a honeycomb grid to be able to control my light a little bit more. I also used a couple YC Onion tube lights on either side of my frame to separate my subject from the background. I set all 3 of these lights to 100% brightness because the brighter I can make my subject, the darker the background will become. In some of these shots, the subject entered frame mid-recording. So in order to set the exposure on that subject, I would bring it into frame prior to recording and adjust accordingly so I knew when the camera was rolling, the shot would be perfectly exposed when the subject entered frame. Another thing the iPhone 12 Pro Max has over other iPhones is Dolby Vision HDR, which finally makes it possible to shoot with an iPhone in low light. This feature alone is reason to upgrade in my opinion. The blacks and whites are beautiful right out of camera, and the HDR content is like nothing I've ever seen out of a phone before. Jake just did an awesome review of this feature over on another video on this channel. I will put a link in the description below, so make sure to check that out if you want to know more. Now let's talk lenses. For the majority of this video, I shot 4K 60 frames per second on the wide or 26mm lens, which gave me the crisp images you saw in the video. The iPhone 12 Max Pro does offer 2 additional lens choices, a telescopic lens and an extra wide lens, but I ended up not using them because they made the image look soft and muddy. This is because the aperture on the wide lens is a 1.6 and the telephoto is a 2.2, so you get more light hitting the sensor with the wide lens, which gives you more information, hence a sharper image and better low light performance. So that's the reason why I stuck with the 26mm lens on this shoot. Now as you saw in the video, there was a lot of really cool slow shots. To achieve this, I would switch to the slow motion mode and put the iPhone shooting at 1080p 240 frames per second. Now I primarily use this mode to make those fast clips go at a pace that the viewer could really take it in and see the juiciness of the oranges. Now an important note when you shoot 240 frames per second is you need a lot of light on your subject in order to have a crisp image when shooting at 240 frames per second. The reason why is because when shooting at that frame rate, your shutter speed has to be double that, which is 1/480 shutter speed. So the light hitting the sensor is a lot less. So make sure to compensate for that when shooting at 240 frames per second. Now let's talk about some of the props I used to get the visuals you saw in the video. First off, I used a fish tank for the underwater dropping shots of the juice. The first challenge with the fish tank was having adequate lighting directed into the water so the camera could pick up the subject and the bubbles created when the juice was dropped. So what I ended up doing is I placed 2 tube lights on either side of the fish tank facing the water, and a third light directly above the fish tank to give my subject that rim light which separated it from the background. The second challenge with the fish tank is when I filled it up with water, there were these micro bubbles appearing on the glass. All it took was a quick squeegee to the glass, but if I hadn't had a squeegee handy, the shot would have been impossible. So make sure if you do any type of fish tank videography, regardless of what camera you're on, make sure to have a squeegee available. The next props I used was a Porter cable drill, duct tape, a spray paint cap, and a paint bucket from Home Depot. This rig was made to get the top-down shot of the orange juice spinning while the oranges fell into it. I placed the drill flat on its back, leaving the drill bit pointing up, and then drilled a hole into the middle of the spray paint cap. Now having the drill and the spray paint cap, I then placed duct tape at the bottom of the paint mixer to prevent leaking juice onto the drill. I then drilled through the center of the paint bucket so that when the drill turned, the bucket would turn with it. I then mounted the iPhone above the rig so it was directly above the orange juice. An important note here is make sure that the orange juice is filling the frame of the iPhone. If it's not, you'll be able to see the paint bucket turning on the sides. This did take a couple of tries to get the orange juice just right, so don't give up if it doesn't work the first couple of times. The next prop I used was plexiglass. We had a large sheet below our subject on top of a black tablecloth. We did this to get a clean reflection of the glass and the orange juice being poured onto it. There were a couple of tricks to this shot as well. First being the glass needed to be as clean as possible because of how easy it was to see reflections of fingerprints and smudges. The best way I found is to use glass cleaner and a microfiber cloth. That way you don't get the little paper towel fuzz left behind and you are left with a perfectly clean glass. Now to get this shot, I had to place the iPhone just barely level with the plexiglass to make sure I got a clean reflection of both the juice and the glass. The second trick was being able to be confident in the pour so that the juice would move around the glass and be aesthetically pleasing. I definitely wasn't perfect at this the first couple of times. I spilled the orange juice the first time and was too scared the second time so that the flow of juice was weak. But like they say, third time's the charm, and I was able to get the shot that you guys saw in the video. Lastly, I want to talk about the pre-production process. Pre-planning for this shoot, I knew I needed a shot list of a variety of shots to showcase the iPhone's capabilities. So here's a quick look at my shot list for this shoot. As you can see, it's not long, but it is there to help me have a roadmap to look at on set. I also knew in order to film with the iPhone, I would have to have special mounts to do so. I ended up just using the iPhone mount that came with my DJI Ronin S2, but you can pick up any type of iPhone mount off of Amazon for just a couple bucks. I knew I also needed a tripod that had a fluid head and the ability to shoot top down. So I picked up the Vanguard VO because it checked all of my boxes. Now I also needed a turntable to get the smooth rotation of the bottle to show the brand, and you can pick up one of these off Amazon for about $20. Now this is definitely a piece of gear I'd recommend as it comes in handy in a lot of different situations. All the other props you saw in this video, such as the fish tank and plexiglass, were picked up both from Home Depot and Walmart for under $100. Well guys, that's it for today. Hopefully you're able to see how we shot a commercial on the iPhone 12. Like I said at the beginning, with every new release of Apple's iPhones, they are inching closer and closer to replacing smaller DSLRs in real-world commercial work. We always say it's not the gear you have, but how you use it. So instead of focusing on the gear you don't have, focus on the gear you do have and become a master of it. But that should give you some quick ideas to quickly improve your smartphone videos and make them more engaging and more professional looking. I'll also be putting together an editing breakdown for this video, which you can find in the paid course, which is one of over 400 videos inside our full course, Full-Time Filmmaker, where we help filmmakers from all over the world go from knowing nothing about filmmaking to becoming professional full-time filmmakers. Even if you're not a rookie, this course will teach you new techniques, help you brush up on old ones, and also connect you with a community of over 15,000 filmmakers just like you. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Hopefully you learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more content just like this. And if you have any further questions, please let us know.